All right, this is John from Spirituality Endgame B. In this video, I'm going to take a look at the Watts family murders from a spiritual perspective. Now, what does that mean? On this channel, the kind of spirituality that I'm talking about revolves around waking up, and particularly waking up to the hidden, unconscious motivations that actually run our lives. Chris Watts' interpretation of the anger that fueled his actions on the night that he killed his entire family went like this. If I don't kill my wife and kids, they're going to take Nicole Kessinger away from me. His goal was to live happily ever after with NK, with Nicole Kessinger. But what he did was perhaps the single worst thing he could do in order to achieve that goal. There was something else going on there that he wasn't aware of. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. All right, so I'm going to try to run through a quick timeline of the events surrounding the Watts family murders. There are a few things that I want to talk about that occurred prior to the actual event. All right, so they met in 2010 in North Carolina, and I thought it was interesting that Sandy Ruzak said one of the first things that Cindy Watts said to her was, she said something like, "I don't see it." And Sandy said, "Don't see what?" And she said, "I don't think your daughter loves my son." And I think that was significant because she really predicts right from the beginning one of the main issues that was going to come up in their relationship. I've dated enough to know that within each family is a little mini culture, and they each have their own way of being with each other. And so these two families had very different notions about what love means, how you treat the other person. And right away, they weren't happy with the way they saw Sha'nann treating Chris.
It was always a little strange that she always said a lot of things about Chris in front of me that I didn't like. Like, this isn't the kind of person I would date. He doesn't know how to do this, or he doesn't know how to do that. He looks like a skater boy. Look at his hair. Look how much stuff he puts on his hair. It was just on and on and on, and I just got a bad feeling.
In all fairness to them, she did write later, she said, "When I met Chris, I pushed him away. I gave every excuse for him to run. I gave him an out every single day. I tortured him. I pushed him away. But he stuck around because he was the one for me. I can't tell you how wonderful he is." Now, this tells me about Chris's conditioning. He was clearly very used to having to work for love and attention. Cindy Watts shared that her German mother was not affectionate, and Chris spent a lot of time with his grandmother while Cindy worked. Chris's grandmother lived right down the street, and according to Cindy, she tried to control her and her family, and she was very negative. So right away, we're getting a picture of this family having issues with not being affectionate and with being negative. And then we have Chris, who seems to think that in order for him to be loved, he has to be a perfect little boy. And people have talked about the fact that he just seemed to be emasculated by Sha'nann, but people don't allow themselves to be emasculated as adults unless something like that happened in childhood. Now, there was something else going on with Chris. Chris's mother did say that he had some very peculiar habits as a child. For example, she would hear him in the bathroom, and he would be repenting over and over in an OCD manner, she said. So he would be asking for forgiveness from God for some sin or other, and she didn't know what that was, but he would do it over and over again. All right, so in 2012, they're married, and the Watts family doesn't attend. The whole rift between the two families centers on the fact that Sha'nann is too high maintenance, that she cares about herself too much, that she doesn't love him or respect him enough, and yet they're the ones who don't show up to the wedding. 2013, they purchased their house in Frederick, Colorado, 2825 Saratoga Trail, and it takes its place among the other famous Colorado murder sites, including the John Benet Ramsey House in Boulder and Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado. All right, so they had their financial issues in 2015. Chris starts working for Anadarko Petroleum. I mean, wow, sounds like a supervillain. The family files for bankruptcy in June. Sometime after the bankruptcy, Sha'nann begins working for Lavelle, a multi-level marketing company selling Thrive vitamin patches. Celeste is born in 2015. Bella was born in 2013. 2017, in September, Nicole Kessinger first Googles Sha'nann Watts. It's possible this was a typo. Someone from, I think, the Sheriff's Department said that they meant to type 2018, but that would have made it September 2018 after the murders. June 5th, the first email from Nicole Kessinger to Chris Watts arrives. June 11th, the Oops, We Did It Again video is filmed, and Chris learns about the third pregnancy.
We did it again. I like that shirt.
June 12th, emails between Chris and NK become more intimate. They start flirting heavily at work. June 14th, there's that heartbreaking "My Daddy is a Hero" video.
My daddy is a hero. He helps me grow up strong.
The same day, Chris enters NK's contact information into his phone. Then on the 22nd, Chris and Sha'nann leave for San Diego. Chris did not want to go on that trip. 26th, they arrive home. The 27th or so, Sha'nann and the girls leave for an extended stay in North Carolina. July 4th is the first time NK visits the Watts home. July 25th, Chris Googled when to say "I love you," but then he also Googled, what do you feel when someone tells you they love you? And then also, how does it feel when someone says "I love you"? It was almost as if he didn't know how that was supposed to feel. He almost sounded like Dexter there.
My name is Dexter Morgan. People fake a lot of human interactions, but I feel like I fake them all.
So July 31st, Chris flies to North Carolina for the last week of the family's vacation in North Carolina. The very first night, he gives Sha'nann 80 milligrams of oxycodone in an attempt to kill Nico. NK had told him that she wanted to give him his first boy. He said that was around the time that he started thinking about killing his family. August 7th, they return home to Colorado. August 8th, Nikki gives Chris a key to her house. He has to leave Nikki's to get to an ultrasound with Sha'nann. August 12th is the day before the murders. Chris took Bella and Cece to a birthday party. All he could think about was Nikki. Nikki texted him all day telling him, "I want you." He said he didn't want to kill his family, but he knew he would. And he later wrote to Sherilyn Cadle from prison about August 12th. "When I finished putting the girls to bed, I walked away and said, that's the last time I'm going to be tucking my babies in." He had phone sex with Nikki. Then August 13th, Sha'nann arrives home in the early morning hours. Her flight was delayed. After talking to Sha'nann and supposedly putting a second crushed up oxycodone in her Thrive drink, he smothers Bella and then Cece before he got back into bed with Sha'nann. And he claims that she was starting to get drowsy. The reason she didn't fight back was because he had given her the oxycodone. And when she started to get drowsy, he said he knew exactly how to squeeze her jugular veins to cut off the blood flow, and she passed out. He kept squeezing. He said he knew if he took his hands off, she would stop him from being with Nikki. Her eyes filled with blood. He knew she was gone when she relieved herself. He was wrapping her in a bedsheet when the girls walked in. He said he could tell that they had been through an ordeal, but he was sure that he had killed them. So here they are, essentially rising from the dead. But all he feels is anger. This feeling of anger that he had never felt before. He felt no compassion. He said he would kill anything that stood in the way. The girls are running around and comforting one another and upset while he is loading his wife, their mother, into his truck. And they essentially have to sit on top of her as he drives them out to Anadarko Site 319, where he smothers the girls, puts the girls in the oil batteries, and then digs a shallow grave for his wife. She gives birth to Nico. Just an absolute horror show. And then, to top it all off, Nicole Kessinger, according to Chris, texts about a song by Metallica called Battery, which includes lyrics about killing the family. In any case, that's it. Those are the events. Alright, so I'm going to tell you precisely why I think Chris Watts did what he did. But first, I want to talk about Game B for a minute. This channel is called Spirituality and Game B, so you might be wondering, what is Game B? For me, Game B refers to what society is going to look like when enough people become spiritually enlightened, or what Maslow called self-actualized, or what Spiral Dynamics calls second tier. These are all ways of talking about a perspective that transcends the limited perspective of the ego, or the self. Buddha means awakened one, and what the historical Buddha awakened to was the fact that blindly chasing one's desires and avoiding one's aversions leads to suffering. It's like a hamster wheel that never gets us anywhere. And because we've got this tunnel vision, we can't see what is really going on. We can't see the big picture or stop playing the game. This is Game A, and it's what most of us are doing most of the time. Like the robot hosts on the TV show Westworld, we imagine that we're making our own decisions and moving forward, but we're actually stuck in a loop of unconscious drives, needs, and conditioned patterns, our programming, or what Eastern traditions call our karma. Game B, on the other hand, is the system or way of being in the world that will emerge when enough people wake up or mature enough to step out of those loops. I'll do other videos on Game B, but for now, let's get back to Chris Watts. Chris Watts was seemingly conditioned to wear this mask as the perfect little boy, as I talked about earlier. So how does he go from that to being totally carried away by this dark desire to eliminate his entire family? It actually makes perfect sense. As children, we need above all else to feel safe. And that safety comes from being seen, heard, and accepted by our caregivers. If we are seen, accepted, and loved, we carry that confidence around with us like a home away from home. The experience of being loved for who we are, and not for what we do, gives us the freedom to be ourselves. We don't have to perform or pretend or worry what someone might think. In addition, we can see and accept others as we were seen and accepted. Now, what happens when a child isn't seen, accepted, or loved? They are left with a deficiency, a hole where that love and confidence should be, and they desperately need to fill it with whatever love and acceptance they can get from the people around them, all the time. But they themselves have none to give. Someone like Chris Watts seems to be capable of love and kindness, but unfortunately it's all transactional. Narcissism comes up a lot in discussions about this case for a good reason. We think narcissists have an abundance of love, for themselves at least. But this isn't true. They don't have any. They don't have any of that home away from home self-love that we talked about earlier. They never experienced an open line of real emotional communication between themselves and another person. As I've mentioned, Chris Watts had to work very hard for acceptance and love. In order to get it, he was trained not to rock the boat in that family. In other words, he couldn't be his authentic self. A narcissistic parent is really like the child in the relationship. They're the ones demanding love and attention from their child. They need their kids to say the right things, to caretake their emotions. It's an enormous amount of pressure to put on a child who has his own needs. Cindy Watts was reportedly obsessed with the idea that Chris loved Ronnie, his father, more than he loved her. and she would ask Chris over and over again what he was thinking and make other kinds of strange demands. Remember, he was so afraid of doing the wrong thing, he would repent in the bathroom as a child. He would beg God for forgiveness. I'm not blaming anyone, it's just a piece of the puzzle. So then Sha'nann comes along.
I wish Chris was home today so he could do the dishes as I bake.
And in order to win her over, Chris did what he always did. He agreed with everything she said. He did everything she wanted to do. Even when she quote-unquote tortured him, he stuck around because he was conditioned to think that's how you get love. That's how it works. Now, Sha'nann tried to push him away. She was actually honest about who she was and what she wanted. He's the one who pursued her and defined their relationship. He made it lopsided in Sha'nann's favor. Then, all these years later, Nicole Kessinger comes along, and she's the opposite.
Hi. It's me. I miss your face.
She pursues him.
I'm having a wonderful time. You mean a lot to me, and I'm glad that you're having a blast.
And the dam bursts inside of Chris Watts. All these years of working for love, all these years of biting his tongue and wearing his mask, and he learns that it was all a lie. He could get love for just being him. In the end, the anger that Chris Watts felt that night came not from the demands of Sha'nann and the girls, but from all the years of dealing with the narcissism that exists in his family of origin. The idea that Sha'nann, let alone Bella and Cece, could take a girlfriend away from him was childish and absurd. All that anger got focused on the wrong people, on innocent people. Chris Watts got hijacked by dark energy that night, that's true. But it wasn't from demons or devils. It wasn't from Nicole Kessinger's black magic. It was coming from the wounded, repressed child within him. It's important to mention that Chris Watts' childhood experiences are just one aspect of what we might call his karma. He could have a genetic anomaly for all we know, or a particular sensitivity in his temperament that predisposed him to do what he did. The point I'm trying to make is that he believed he was making the right choice. He believed that he knew what he was doing. But obviously, he did not know what he was doing. He didn't know that his conscious mind only had a part of the story. And until you and I look inside and begin to explore our internal landscape, we too are lost in an illusion of control, the illusion of self. There are systems within us that have been evolving for millions of years. All kinds of drives, needs, and expectations that we don't account for when we think that we are the executive of all we do. Awakening to the fact that things aren't always the way they seem to us is liberating. Your fear in the moment often has nothing to do with that moment. What comes along with the realization that you have not been the conscious author of your experience is the recognition that you can, quote-unquote, choose again. That you can be self-actualized. You simply have to wake up to all the hidden energy and information that has been running your life and choose a new path. And this is how this case can help all of us. The lesson is, know thyself. We spend too much time looking out in the world for answers. They are all inside. We can come to know the nature of our spirit and set it free. As long as we are wrapped up in unresolved issues and energy from the past, we aren't free. We aren't making our own decisions. There is an authentic you beneath your shadow and your ego. A spiritual path is like a hero's journey through our old unconscious patterns and through our shadow. And on the other side, we can be in the moment as it is, instead of how we need it to be. All right, so that's it for now. If you liked anything in the video, please make sure you hit the like button. And stay tuned to the channel because I'll have more content coming your way soon. Thank you so much.